Hello, welcome back to the UK Pick 6 podcast, where once again we're talking all things American football and NFL. This week, slightly different though, as we're kind of going behind the scenes of the business behind the business, if you will, with our special guest we had on today, Whitney Holtzman, who is the CEO of Social Victories, a social media and marketing consultancy company, Chief Marketing Officer for NFL, MLB and NHL players, and a published author with her book, You Are the First You. Joined us on the podcast, no Dave this week, but it was just myself, Ollie Wilson, and Jazz Gillum talking to Whitney. Whitney's one of the nicest people that I've met when I've been out at the Super Bowls in the last couple of years. We managed to catch up in South America once as well, which was really random, but kind of shows that she's such a welcoming person who's willing to catch up and hang out with people wherever she finds them all over the world. Really uplifting personality. She has a wonderful work ethic and a way of doing business and running her business that's very different, almost Jerry Maguire-esque, if you will. That did crop up as well, a Jerry Maguire reference at some point. She's also the reason why we had Cam Lynch and Brandon Copeland on the show as well. Really interesting chat about the business, about her love of Tampa sports, about everything else in between, her stalking of Tim Tebow and now Tom Brady, and how she's going to divide her time up between those two legendary quarterbacks of the, I guess both now of the Florida area, and a whole lot more. Really good fun. Great listen. Hopefully a good watch. Enjoy.
So you run into athletes wherever you go, and the stadium is easy to get to. We're Bucs season ticket holders, and
Nice.
It was beyond a dream that Tom Brady ended up here, because a dream is something you think about and you hope might happen. I didn't even think it was on the realm of possibilities. So when he ended up here was beyond a dream come true. I mean, the most excitement I've ever had as a Tampa sports fan, aside from winning the Super Bowl.
I was going to say that must have been on par with that.
Yeah, but to think that I may never get to see him play in person is just complete torture. And then to get the Super Bowl, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. All I can say is that I hope things get better in the next few months so that I get to witness all these things, because otherwise that would be the most tragic story.
Yeah, that's the real victim story of COVID, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know why they're not playing this one on the news.
Exactly.
I have to say, though, you must have a bit of a mixed camp with the Tom Brady thing, right? Because obviously, as a Bucs fan, as a Tampa, I mean, from what I've gathered, especially in the last few months, they did a big thing about in the local media about how you were basically Miss Tampa. You know, you are the most enthusiastic person about all of the sports teams and about the city in general. But you, as CEO of Social Victories and CMO for Brandon Copeland, obviously now have links up in New England. And there must be an element of frustration that Brandon's there. As we asked him on the pod a few weeks ago, Brady's now gone. Are you not a bit like, well, I want to see Brandon go and get a ring? Or are you more, well, I want to see Tampa Bay go and get a ring with Brady? I mean, you've got conflicting loves in this.
Yeah, so obviously I cheer for my clients and I want them to succeed individually and have great performances. But first and foremost, I am a sports fan because of the Tampa teams, and I'm not confused about my loyalty. And
I
to
like
be
that.
fair, at any moment, Brandon could come play in Tampa. So they change teams. So you can't pick a team based on where they are, because then your loyalties are all over the place. And I have not forgotten my first loves.
Excellent. And I love the cardboard cutout of you at the Rays game.
I saw that.
Well, that is strong work.
Yeah, it's something. So just this week, I've been virtually at an NBA game in the stands. Like, I was on a Zoom chat and they imported my face to the Mavericks Rockets game, which was hysterical. So and then I was a cardboard cutout at the Rays game. So I'm still attending sporting events. It's just in very different forms these days. Any way I can be there virtually, I've found a way.
So with the NBA one, sorry to interrupt early, did you actually get to see the video feed as if you were at that seat, or was it?
Sort of. So
Okay.
I used to work at a nonprofit called Rise, started by the owner of the Miami Dolphins, and our mission was to unite communities, and it was all about racial equality. And they have the commissioner of every sports league on their board. So a coworker from Rise reached out and said, I have 2 extra tickets. do you want to be part of the television broadcast? Those were all the instructions I got.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, they were going to show the Zoom screen of fans, like kind of cut to them at a break and say, these are all the people watching from home. So, I was just on the Zoom chat, cheering along, doing my thing. And then I thought it would be fun to turn on the game and see what this whole setup, like see if they show us on the broadcast. I didn't realize the whole time they were taking my face and I was in the stands during it. And had I not turned on the game, I wouldn't have realized. So it was like looking at a regular Zoom chat. And it wasn't until I turned on ESPN, I went, that's my face.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
So for me, it looked like a Zoom chat, but for them, it looked like I was a head sitting on a chair virtually in the background.
That's cool. That's
Very
cool.
Futurama, isn't it, that?
Yeah, and it's good because now I can be in a lot of places. Like I could be home in pajamas, but also at an NBA game, but also a cardboard version of me at a baseball game. So I like that I've been scaled during coronavirus.
But you would have to be careful of the pajamas attire and stuff, because obviously if you're on the virtual Zoom call, you don't want it to pop up that you're in your comfies and your PJs in the stands at that point. I mean, yeah, we'll have like couchy, lazy wear and stuff like that. You don't want to get caught on national television in your kind of PJs.
That's exactly right. And I think there probably, I've heard maybe there's been a few slip-ups already of people getting the wrong body parts or not having the full outfits. So I think it's all going to be a work in progress, but it's until you can go to a game safely, I think the NBA has gotten very creative. And secondarily, I'll take a cardboard version of myself on at the baseball games. I thought it was funny that someone saw me on the broadcast. They put me in the outfield, so I'm like, oh, well, this is a waste.
Yeah, you need to be behind home plate. Do you know how they allocate that? Do they have like the kind of big name celebrity faces that you sometimes see behind home plate anyway? And those baseball's cheap. It's like $16 a ticket, and then you don't go to those seats in the front row, and it's like, oh, that's about $1,000 suddenly. Oh, okay, that's fair. But you get some nice amenities. But do the celebrities still covet those seats, even in their cardboard cutout versions?
Yeah, so I think what they did was put the media members who cover the team, they got in the front row, and also the family members of the players so that they could see their family members when they were coming up to bat, which is understandable, but like I should have been right after that. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
The outfield, like what did I ever do? It's not like a punishment.
That's the last time I get a cardboard cutout of myself made and put into a baseball stadium, which I guess we're all hoping that's the case anyway, so that we can actually get back to watching it.
Gotta work on that. And I actually thought what was pretty funny is that the Rays have actual stingrays in their stadium during the games, but they had a thing on the news where the Rays are like sea puppies, like they need a lot of love and attention, and normally fans can go and pet the Rays during games, but because there's no fans this year, they had to move all the Rays out to an aquarium where people could come and visit because they were going to have no socialization this year.
Now, that's another horror story, isn't it? COVID again, striking at the heart of these manta rays.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's so many ramifications from coronavirus, and I thought that was an interesting one that hasn't been covered. But I think the good news is normally when I'm at a game, like I'm just eating constantly. And so I think the good news about my cardboard cutout is that when they show it, if and when it ever happens again, I won't have food in my face because
there you go.
It's stagnant. So that's the only upside.
Yeah,
What's
but
your
again,
go-to
because
snack?
you got to be careful with the snacks at home again,
Yeah.
because they can cut to you just as you're taking the big bite of nachos or something that are twice as big as you get in the actual NBA stadiums, because you're making them at home, so you can indulge a little bit more, right?
Exactly. It was actually somewhat more pressure. I mean, you're at home, which is nice, but it was just me the whole game, and there were only a few fans in the background. So like, you can't just get up and go to the bathroom. You can't have there's no way that they're going to pan to someone else. I mean, there was only a few, about 5 rows in the background of every shot. And so the pressure was really on. It's like, I'm hungry. When is the bathroom break? So, you really had to take the fandom up a few levels in order to be present during quarantine.
If anybody can do it, it's you, because every single person that I've met, and whenever we've kind of had, 3 meetings, the kind of, when we met in Argentina, which still just blows my mind that we got to hang out there as well as
Crazy.
up in Miami and Atlanta. But you have such a kind of positive, upbeat spirit. Everybody knows when you're in the area, you're always looking on the kind of the best side of everything. It is an infectious personality, and you can't not be kind of happy around you, it seems. And that's coming from a guy that's pretty miserable a lot of the time, to be honest. Like,
True story.
That way at all. Like,
well, that's because thankfully it's your personality that raises me up a little bit. Otherwise, I'm just the most droll, miserable sod you can find. Don't worry. It's that English demeanor of mine that's just built in.
you match the weather. Is that the deal?
Yeah, kind of, pretty much. Which in Atlanta, it was cold. So I was a pretty cold person that week. I thought Georgia was meant to be sunny in the south, not this -4 rubbish that we had to deal with.
Literally, believe me, even coming one state away, I could barely handle it. But I do think it's hysterical that we live on different continents and we seem to keep running into each other all over the world. There's no one else I have a story like this with. It's hysterical.
Yeah, it's just
what
weird.
happened?
I'll let Whit tell the details of it.
Okay, so Ollie and I originally met at the Super Bowl in Atlanta. One of my clients, Cam Lynch, was picked by the NFL to broadcast the Super Bowl. And lucky for him, he was paired with Ollie, and they got to do it together and kind of bonded, and that's where they met. And the next year in Miami, we ran into each other on Radio Row, and I got to introduce him to another client, Brandon Copeland. But the funniest of them all was that we ran into each other in Argentina. I was there with my mom, and we were talking about this moment the other night and so grateful for it because we had no idea it was one of the last times we were going to be able to travel. It was last May, and I was there with my mom for a meeting, and I saw on Instagram, the power of social media, that Ollie was down there too. And I said, we have this one night, my mom has this cocktail reception with some of her coworkers. Do you want to join so that we can catch up? Poor Ollie got stuck in traffic like 2 miles away from the hotel. He was already running a little late. So major credit to him. He got out of the Uber and sprinted the rest of the 2 miles to the hotel. It's this beautiful, elaborate ballroom. It's all these lawyers. Everyone's very dressed up. And Ollie came in drenched in sweat and such a trooper. And I was like, Ollie, this is my mom. I mean, the whole thing was absolutely hysterical. But we had so much fun catching up and just couldn't believe that we were in the middle of Argentina and able to reunite. It was so random.
It's the athlete in Ollie coming out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is the fastest 2-mile jog that I'd done in a long time at that point, I tell you.
Especially if you give Ollie the chance of having booze, he's going to run very fast.
Delicious red wine at that reception. Cannot thank you enough for that one. Yeah, it was phenomenal. You know, I've been drinking the kind of, $6 cheap stuff from the supermarket, just getting by while being out there. And then suddenly the grandest hotel I'd seen, the nicest area of the city, and everybody's dressed wonderfully. And I'm there in like black shirt and jeans, which is about as smart as I could get at that point, but then covered in sweat. I was just so out of place. It was unreal.
And to his credit, he was such a trooper. He didn't know anyone besides us. It was this very sort of upscale cocktail reception environment. And then a tango demonstration broke out. So Ollie just went with the flow because the whole thing was quite a wild night, and we were throwing lots of different things at him, and he just went with it.
Was he a good tango dancer?
Oh, I did not tango. No.
Oh, okay. I was getting excited there. I thought maybe Ollie's got some secret dance moves he's not been telling people about.
I have no dance moves whatsoever. I wouldn't pull them out in front of Whitney or her mum. I respect them far too much to tarnish their eyes with such moves, particularly a dance like the tango in its native land. Couldn't be.
Yeah.
Ollie, but you have spent a long time in Argentina. I mean, you've been down there for months at a time. So I feel like you must have picked up some moves that you're not showing us.
Honestly, people won't believe this, but I actually work too much to be able to do things like going out for the tango lessons and stuff. We have 5-6 days a week basically of solid work, late nights, early starts. And then the 1 day a week that you get off, I just want to die and be in bed and like watch the college football and stuff like that, because I'm on the right timeline for once to be able to watch the US sports a little better than staying up till midnight and stuff. So as much as I'd love to say like, oh yeah, I've traveled around and I've experienced all the kind of the delights and the quintessential cafes in La Boca and stuff, it's like, no, I'm dead to the world on that Saturday. Me and my mate down there go for a couple of beers, but that's about it, unfortunately. You got to go to Iguazu and stuff though, didn't you? You went up there for the day.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, we flew to Iguazu Falls literally for the day, hiked all 3 levels of it, and then flew back at night. It was probably the most epic day of all time, but it was the highlight of that trip. I'm glad we kind of took advantage and went for the adventure.
This is what I'm talking about, though. If like, you do Iguazu in a day. Some people go up there and do like 2-3 nights and, take their time with it. And you're like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do all 3 levels of it. Bam, bam, bam. The energy. I mean, you and Cam do the Energy Captains podcast, but that is no misnomer of that podcast. Both you and Cam are just like, let's get it. Let's get at it. Let's go 110%. And then let's find the next thing to go on to. It's insane, man. Where's it all come from?
I don't know. It's just kind of our DNA. And I thought I had a lot of energy until I met Cam. And now I just feel asleep next to him because that guy goes at 400 miles an hour. I think his girlfriend said he's always at 1,000%. And that's the best way to put it. I mean, he's nothing less. And you just feel completely sluggish when you're around him. So I feel grateful to have found someone like him to kind of pump me up and keep me going, because he just his energy level is unbelievable, and I don't know where he gets it from.
I imagine you both kind of read off each other quite a lot, to be honest. I can't imagine Cam flacking because I've never seen it, but if it does happen, I imagine you're there like continually pushing him up the hill and vice versa kind of thing as well.
We try. I think both of us in our lives were a little bit the underdogs. Like we were just kind of growing up. It was sort of, okay, mediocrity, and we looked around us and everything just kind of felt average, but that's never how we felt. And so we always knew if we wanted to achieve our dreams, we were going to have to outwork everyone, go above and beyond, and really bring it at every moment to be able to accomplish our goals. And I think we realized that's been the differentiator for us, and we've kind of stuck with it. And it was in our DNA, but it also became how we operated in our daily lives.
That's awesome, man.
They're really good.
In terms of, and not to go back to like the depressing story of COVID, because it's just lingering over us and all of that sort of stuff. But in terms of dealing with COVID, in your position as kind of a marketing manager for these athletes, including Brandon and Cam, somebody who is quite obviously very well connected and knowledgeable about the impact of dealing with things like brand creation with social media and trying to be innovative with things like Instagram, Twitter, and what that can do to kind of reach out to expand an athlete's brand, but also kind of create followers and fans of individual athletes as well as the teams. Is COVID almost like quite exciting at the same time? Because there is, and that isn't to say to like wipe off the sincerity of what's happening, but from your kind of professional realm right now, there's a lot that is being done and can be done to continue to reach out even more. And social media seems to be at the forefront of that right now. And it's something that somebody with your knowledge and expertise, is there a bit of you that's kind of almost excited about the opportunities that are coming with it to an extent? Or is excited the wrong word? I don't want to make it sound like we're being blasé with...
longest question in history.
I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, no one is immune from the effects of COVID, and it's provided a lot of extra challenges. I mean, my business before COVID hit was sports and events and appearances. Starting March 11th, both of those got wiped off the face of the planet. So not only was I, as a business, trying to innovate and figure out what's next, a lot of the guys I work with had never been in this circumstance. So part of it became not only trying to figure out my own path, but how do I help them? Cam is someone who's used to broadcasting and being out and about every day and playing football. And someone like Brandon has a baby. Someone like Cam, it's just he and his girlfriend. And so a lot of the guys who are used to being busy saw it as a break to spend time with their families. But if you didn't have that, it was very isolating, very lonely. I think we had a lot of talks about the importance of patience, working on your mental health during this time. And I think eventually pretty quickly what I evolved to was looking for the silver linings of COVID. So how can you make the most of every day? How can we make our world better than it was before because of COVID? And what opportunities now exist because of our new world? And I think obviously the building of a digital presence became even more important than ever because you couldn't actually show up. So your digital presence fully represented you, and that was how you could build your brand and get the word out. A lot of people look at pro athletes and say, well, they play a sport, so they're set for life. But that's not necessarily the case for the vast majority of the guys, especially in the NFL. They could be on 3 teams for the preseason and never make it to week 1 on an NFL roster, and never really make an NFL paycheck. And you never know when it's going to end. So the guys I work with, well, they've been playing, use their off days to have internships, to do speaking opportunities, to build their careers off the field. And same thing after practice. A lot of guys go home and play Nintendo, but not the guys I work with. They're running to a radio station to practice broadcasting or flipping a house. And so because they had used their time in the spotlight and opportunities they were given to build a second career, they were okay during COVID. And it's some of the few athletes that I knew were okay and were sort of still being tapped for opportunities because they had put that work in. And I think it's a really important lesson for everyone, because COVID hit and it shocked a lot of people. People lost opportunities, but those opportunities are going to come back. And even beforehand, everyone is sort of given their time in the spotlight or their dream job, or things are going well for them. But instead of resting on your laurels, I hope this opportunity serves as a wake-up call to ask yourself what else you can be doing during these times to create a plan B, or to maximize the opportunity you're in. Can you meet with a few extra people, have a few extra phone calls? What can you do to make the most of whatever situation you're in?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that came out of the talk with Brandon, actually, was in terms of, I didn't realize when people got paid in the NFL. And I saw on a different podcast he was on that it was like 4 p.m. on the Tuesday, I think it is. And there's one week where he got told at 3:56 that he'd been cut.
Right.
And that obviously would completely change your point of view on everything that happens. I mean, having a secondary kind of backup, if that's how quickly it can be taken away from you, completely makes sense. And yeah, hats off to these guys doing all the extra bits. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we have broadcasting, which you can still now do virtually. Sports are back. 2 guys in real estate. That never died down during COVID.
Yep.
If anything, here in Florida, at least, people were moving from New York when it was bad in the cities. And we had people in buildings who wanted to get into larger spaces and in their own property. So real estate shot up. Obviously, people were struggling with money issues, so branding came into play. And Steve McClendon with his gym, I mean, people still wanted to work out, and he had this huge open space and out in the outskirts of Georgia and outdoor areas, and he was able to hold classes socially distanced. So like I said, they were the only group of people who, because they had put in the work ahead of time to create second careers, when COVID hit, they had a backup plan. And that's why these guys have succeeded, because they never take the opportunity they're given and are just content with it. They figure out how they can totally blow it out of the water and make the most of it. And I think it's very inspiring, because at the same time, they are the busiest people you could ever imagine. I mean, the practices, the games, all of it is so physically and mentally draining. So it just shows if they can do it, the rest of us don't have any excuses.
I don't think that. I was looking for an excuse.
I think content's the big word there as well, isn't it? I think as soon as you kind of admit that you're content with where you are, that's when you get complacent and you kind of stop doing what you could be doing to grow further. So yeah, that's a fascinating way of looking at things.
And it's so many people don't hear the stories that you only get paid 17 weeks a year in the NFL. And I knew one guy was on the Jets, the Seahawks, and the Bucks for almost all of preseason, and every time right before the season started, he got cut. And I mean, you almost make minimum wage when you're working preseason. So to the outside world, it looked like he had been on 3 NFL teams, but in reality, he could have made more taking any other job in society than probably being on the preseason roster. Maybe he made $1,000 a week and had to pay for car and hotel. And so he's someone who, thought 3 times that he was going to be making an NFL salary, and it didn't even happen once. So there's so many stories like that. In Brandon's, he was on IR, he got cut a bunch of times. Yeah. And I think he'll tell you, when I met him, I think it was 2017, he was kind of bouncing around. I don't want to say floundering. He had been on a few different teams, but it just had bad luck with injuries and getting cut. And then we started working on his financial literacy platform. And I want to say by the end of a year of us working together, he had, I want to say it was maybe 12 interest from 12 teams, or, I mean, it completely shot up. So his story is a a very valid example of the importance of building your brand off the field. If COVID doesn't do it, hopefully he can serve as an example, because it's elongated his NFL career because he's seen as a winner on and off the field.
Do you think teams look at that like, when somebody's got a CV for any job and it suddenly says, went traveling around South America for 18 months, and, as the person who's doing the hiring in HR will be like, well, that's something that's quite unique and actually interesting and shows they have a lot of experience elsewhere outside of this job that might be beneficial down the line. Do NFL teams, do you think, look at kind of a skill set that Brandon has and go, oh, right, well, he's obviously interested in doing something else outside of football as well. If he can do something on the pitch, that's great, but it also shows that he's got the mental capabilities elsewhere as well to not just be this kind of, I don't want to say one-note jock because that sounds too like movie and cliche kind of thing, but it's another little string to the bow, so to speak, that an NFL team would look at and appreciate.
I have no doubt. I mean, I think just by nature, it elevates the person's name. The week of the NFL draft a year or two ago, Brandon, who wasn't drafted, was the main story on ESPN.com because of the work he had been doing with his real estate flipping and financial literacy. And so just that high profile attention that he was getting, and his name's everywhere, he starts to become a celebrity and become really well known to people. And that definitely starts to catch on. He becomes a famous player. I think secondarily, you hear so many stories of the bad guys and the impact that has on his teammates, on team chemistry, and the bad PR. And so I think very recently, over the past few years, teams have really wanted to make sure that the person is a good guy, and they look into that before signing them, because they don't want that bad juju brought into their team, and they don't want the bad PR. They don't want it to be disruptive. They want people who are going to be great leaders on the field and off the field, and that's someone I would call a winner. And I think that's what they're looking for also, because you look at a guy like Antonio Brown and see what that did. I mean, he has top talent, but he's currently not on a roster. So I think they know what happens to someone who doesn't have good character. And when you have the opposite end of the spectrum, they know how much, after a bad week, that person can help rally some of the rookies and bring a team together and kind of mentally get them on the right track. And that's invaluable. And so someone like that is a true unicorn, and absolutely a team wants to hold on to.
That's an awesome phrase, a true unicorn. I really like that. That's a really good one. We might have to clip that off and start using that as a drop at some point of describing
I'm sure Brandon will be thrilled. I'm going around describing him as a unicorn. I'm sure that's how he's talking about himself in the Patriots locker room.
You need to get him a pair of unicorn socks to wear under his game day socks.
Exactly. We just need like a little thing he can walk in and wear some pastel colors and pixie dust. I think it'll be a really, really great fit. But that's how I view him, because when I met him, he'll tell you, he said to me, "Are you sure you want to take me on? I'm kind of a nobody." But I could see the innate success within him and what a superstar human being he was. And I knew that was those are the type of people that win in life. They end up being very successful. So I had no doubt that he was going to be a superstar. And I think teams realize that also, that when someone has the intangibles, they're going to be a success for their organization.
That's the key, though, isn't it? It's the intangibles. And that's the thing that you always hear in the draft, especially. You always got all the intangibles, because athletes can have all the physical skills you can need, but if they can't understand where they should be, or like you say, if they haven't got the mental toughness to deal with things, or the ability to dedicate themselves and push themselves daily to do and become the best they can be, it doesn't matter what skills you've got. You have to have that intangible stuff to go with it.
Yeah, well, you're speaking to my soul here, because I've just had to put up with Jameis Winston for the last 4 years. So,
yeah.
I mean, talk about...
He's got eye surgery. He's had eye surgery.
And I'm glad for him he doesn't have to wear glasses, but good judgment doesn't come from your eyes.
No, I know.
Yeah. I remember... What?
You're glad he doesn't have to wear that Bucks uniform anymore as well.
Thank God. It's one member of the media here posted a picture of him in his Saints uniform and said, "What are 3 words that you think of when you see this picture?" And for me, it was like, adios, goodbye, sayonara. It was like, what are all the ways that I could say peace out to this guy, because I couldn't wait for him to be. It was just so painful. And I think I kept hearing the same rhetoric over and over again, whereas for me, the first day that he was drafted. I remember watching the draft and I was frozen when I saw that he was picked, because I said, I've never seen a good leader with bad judgment. So I knew, based on the decisions he was making, he's probably a good-hearted person, and he means well, but you can't have someone 7, 8, 9 times make bad judgment calls and then ultimately be a winner and someone who's successful. So I just knew it was never going to pan out. It was like, how soon can we get rid of this guy? And then the universe rewarded me with Tom Brady.
And also
we talking
change
about
the uniforms too.
Yeah.
Because the jerseys that Winston had, that bookended his entire stint, were not the best, and the new ones they've got again are far better.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the whole time he just threw to the other team. I mean, if Tom Brady just throws to our team, we'll already
you already better.
Yeah, I mean, it was like it became a joke that within the first 2 minutes of every game last year, you'd turn it on and Jameis would have already thrown an interception.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
I'm glad the city of Tampa sees it the way that we've been seeing it as well. Like, sometimes there's a little bit of kind of lost in translation, but when it comes to Jameis Winston, I think both sides of the pond are able to say the exact same thing, that he's a terrible quarterback.
Well, we asked Cam about it, didn't we? And he was a bit more nice about it than we were.
Oh, well, Cam is friends with Jameis.
That would be why.
They're good friends, and they played on a team together. And that's the thing. Everyone who plays with Jameis really likes him. I'm not saying he's a bad person. He's probably a really nice guy. Mm-hmm. He means well, but on and off the field, he doesn't make judgment calls worthy of an ultimate leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you want your leader to pick up a load of crab's legs for a party. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, I knew we were going to be off to a bad start, because the night he signed his contract here in Tampa that first year, he posted a picture celebrating with crab legs.
I don't know. No. I kind of like that. That's quite
some irony there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's leaning into it.
But it was just, you got off on the wrong foot. It was a new chapter, a new city. You're in the pros. You have a chance to put all the other mess behind you, and you start out by resurfacing it.
Yeah, very much so. That's not trying to put the past behind you and show that you've matured, is it? Not at all.
Exactly.
So with that, when they drafted Winston, would you have rather they've drafted Mariota? Because, of course, he's not had a stellar career either.
I would have rather they drafted the crab legs.
Oh, wow. that's big.
I could so clearly see he had bad judgment. And like we talked about, your intangibles and how you behave off the field dictates how you're going to succeed on the field. So I knew very early on it wasn't going to be pretty. And so Mariota, when you compared them, seemed like a really quality person, made good decisions. Yeah. And we don't know what would have happened down here, but there's no way anyone could have thrown more interceptions than Jameis. So to this day, I would still take anyone else.
That's a fair point.
This idea of the kind of personalities on and off the pitch brings me to, so there's normally another guy on the podcast, Dave, who can't be with us this evening. He's sent me a message with very detailed instructions of how this needs to be read. It's a question that he has for you. It's line for line. I need to go word for word. So if I stumble over the words, I do apologize.
Okay, did he sweat too much and pass out? Is that what happened to him? Is that why he's not?
No, nothing like, well, maybe. But he says, hi, Whit. Sorry I can't be there. I hope the guys are behaving themselves without me as the voice of reason. Jazz, especially.
That's big.
Which is a bold call already, because Dave, not that rational. Being a fan of American football and film, when I think about sports agents, I still think about Jerry Maguire. Do you think your current role of working closely with players will help you care more about your clients and make them show you the money, wink, wink? Which I think, the wink thing is, I didn't think... I didn't think the wink was needed, but he said...
Creepy, the winking, isn't it?
He said...
Creepy.
Underneath it, he said, read it like that. So this is all his wording of it. I guess he's talking about having, good people in your entourage, so you speak. And do you think that will help benefit down the line in your role?
I love that he wrote out the wink wink. I mean, that really is just going the extra mile there. So I hope I make him proud with my answer. But I think loyalty and love are the key to everything in life, and putting your best foot forward and doing the right thing. And for me, my clients are my family. I don't know how to be any other way. And I think when I started my business, I assumed I was just going to be doing social media and endorsement deals or appearances for the athletes. And very quickly, I became alarmed. I looked around, and the athletes had agents who, on a good year, maybe came to one of their games. And the teams had marketing and social media people, but no one was helping these guys maximize their time in the spotlight and figure out life after sports. I mean, I looked at someone like Cam. He came over to my house for Thanksgiving with my family because you're in a new city. You don't know anyone. These guys are young. It's very lonely. It's very isolating. And when people meet them, they treat them like celebrities and figure out what they can get out of it, but no one is thinking about helping them. And so for me, I don't know any other way to be. And especially once I realized the circumstances, it became my calling and my purpose. You know, I say to the guys I work with, don't look at football as your purpose. How can you look at it as your platform to your purpose? And for me, I thought my purpose was helping them build their brands. And sure, I do that, but ultimately I try and help them become the best versions of themselves and make their lives better. And I think that that was just very rare from what I've gathered in the sports world. It was a lot of, how can I suck money out of you and then just corporate mom, because he said I was the first person in his life that was a day-to-day teammate. So all I can do is what's within my, is do what I think is best, and do my best to help these guys and take care of them and figure out their next paths after sports and teach them the right way to do things. And whatever comes from that is great. I think especially someone like Brandon Copeland, when we started out working together, it was just us. He wasn't really a name. And now he's getting opportunities left and right, and people are reaching out for things. And I don't think he's ever forgotten that when I go visit, I held his newborn baby, or I send birthday gifts, or I'm also equally friendly with his wife, because I think that establishes a level of trust and comfort that they aren't getting even close to with anyone else in sports. So you hope it pays off, and I want them to see I genuinely care, because I love these guys, and it breaks my heart how other people treat them, and then whatever comes from that is a bonus.
So really, you're kind of treating them as if how you'd want to be treated if the roles were reversed. I think if you do that in life anyway, you kind of get the best out of everything you can, because if you treat everyone the way you wish to be treated, you can't really go wrong.
Exactly.
But I imagine there's so many leeches, and imagine as well when you become a athlete getting paid the NFL money in inverted commas, all your friends from high school and all the ones from college that said hi to you 3 times, suddenly they come out the woodwork and say, buy me this, give me a car, I'm really down on my luck, I need some money. And you think, oh, he was a nice guy, I'll do that. But you don't think about the leeches just trying to take everything they can off you for no reward.
Absolutely. And I think that for so long, everyone has referred to these guys as an athlete. That's how they know themselves. And so it's really important to me to drill down and help them figure out, okay, who are you as a person? Who are you authentically, so that whatever we select moving forward for your careers and whatever we pursue can be sustainable for the whole rest of your life. So that, you know, I think a lot of these guys, you know, they play football, they train, and that's all they're used to for 20 plus years. And then one day they get cut and they don't know how to go about things. What we had to figure out in middle or high school, they're figuring out in their mid-20s. A lot of them don't have a support system. And so they're completely left high and dry. And it broke my heart of what that can do to someone's mental health and their mental well-being. And I didn't want any of my clients to have to go through that. I wanted to establish the transition before it even happened, so that once it did happen, they were so excited about the next chapter, they didn't care that the previous one was ending. And to really sit down with them and say, okay, what is unique about you that's going to last forever, that you're passionate about, that separates you from everyone else? I don't think most people are doing that with them. So when we're tracking for their next career steps in life, or doing something that they're going to be really excited about, that's going to be fulfilling, that they're going to be happy about. And I think in addition to the leeches, no one has helped them figure out who they are as people outside of sports. And I think always referring to them as an athlete can ultimately be detrimental.
Dude, that is one thing I was just thinking there is these guys, and I certainly felt it when Cam and I were talking before the Super Bowl, when they had that media advisor who was kind of going through broadcasting with Cam like it was NFL game tape. You're like, if this happens, think about this. If this happens, think about this. And then all of the guys from the TalkSport crew were like, dude, Cam, just be yourself. Like, we want your personality. Like, if you can give us insight into the game, great. If you can look at things and be a second pair of eyes for me, even better. Just, enjoy it and relax and have fun. And then, but you are taking guys that have had probably since the last couple of years of high school, all the way through college and then into their professional careers that can go at any moment. They are trained almost like robotically. It's this happens, so you go here. This happens, you go here. We're going to sort out your diet, your fitness, everything else. Your life is planned almost for you. And then you come along and it's like, hey, there's a whole big world out there outside of this thing. What do you actually like when you're not thinking about football in those 5 minutes of the day that you're allowed to think for yourself, almost kind of thing? That must be a really tough, nut to crack open for a lot of these guys as well, because they don't think that freely for a lot of their days.
Exactly. I mean, you really have to have a conversation about self-awareness. I sit down with them. I get to know them as people. I mean, it's a long time before we start talking business. We make sure that we connect as human beings first. And luckily, the guys that come my way and that I work with are self-motivated. I don't have to push them towards anything. They're very aware that football isn't going to last forever. And you have to have that humble mentality to be able to do what we do and to build these second careers and figure it out, because you have to accept that I'm not going to be a football player forever. And I think it's a very hard step for a lot of guys to get there in the first place, because they don't want to lose that glory. And oftentimes it doesn't end on their own terms, and that's still very hard no matter what, but it does help soften the blow if there's something they're excited about that they can fall back on. And I think I also became pretty disappointed that these leagues have so much money, every connection, every resource in the world, and how little they do to prepare these guys for life after sports. It's kind of like, all right, once we're done with you, then we don't have to invest anymore. You kind of get kicked to the curb. I mean, I think Cam told me one time he was on a bus on the way to the airport for a game, and they were like, you're cut, and just kind of dropped him off. And I think
really
metaphorically that's what happens also. And so I also sit down and we have to have a lot of hard conversations in talking about business. I mean, most of them don't have resumes. You have to put together a resume. I talk about, if you want to start your own company, you have to pay employees, and these are the ramifications. If you're just asking people to do things for free, you could get sued because they're used to their world where their athletes and people approach them and offer things all the time, and they're happy to take the handouts. That sounds great. But when you're running your own company, it doesn't work that way. And so their brain isn't trained that way. And the importance of having a lawyer look over contracts. And so sometimes I hate that I feel like I have to be tough on them, but I'm always looking out for them and protecting them. And apparently until we get to these conversations, no one has told them these things before. And I think they're instrumental in protecting themselves for the next chapter of their lives. And so we almost have a business combine of our own of, hey, not only do we have to figure out what you want to do, but we also have to prepare you for the things that you're not used to. By the way, when you're in a job, whether you're joining a company or you're starting your own, like, there's such thing as an HR department. There are things you can say and you can't say. You can't bring locker room talk into the office setting. And, a lot of them are leaders on the field. And so they think they can go right into business. They don't realize there's all these other things and departments involved, like HR and marketing, in running a business.
If only the Washington football team had thought about that a few years ago before sending their cheerleaders all over the country and the world, actually, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, once you hear how some of these owners act, or the culture at some of the teams, you're not surprised that the players end up that way. But I just think it's the mentality that everyone looks at them as superstars and thinks they're going to be okay forever, but there's no one actually there making sure that they are okay. And that became really alarming to me. And how could I, once you start working with someone like that and so closely, how could you not take care of them and look out for them? And by the way, I'm not always hand-holding. I oftentimes give them tough answers and things that they're not happy about, but it's because it's what's going to be most helpful for them moving forward. I won't work for a year for free, because when you have your own employees, you can't expect that either. I want them to be fully ready to handle every part of the next chapter of their lives, because my heart will break if they get themselves into a situation where they just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
God,
that's a great way of saying it.
It's like the education that they should be given in college while they're playing college ball.
Right.
They all seem to do the kind of courses like business management and stuff like that. But I guess a lot of the time when you're playing college football, that kind of goes into the background of the studies, and you end up just being on the practice field in the weights room a hell of a lot and doing playbook stuff. And actually, have you ever thought about doing lecturing, like going to universities and doing that sort of thing? Because this is something that really are lessons that a lot of these pro athletes could do with learning far earlier before they ever get anywhere near a professional contract.
Or everyone, really.
Yeah. By the way, we will be asking you to work for free for a year in marketing this podcast, if that's okay. So
yeah, no problem. Sign me up. As you can see by the last, 43 minutes, that's obviously my platform and what I believe in. So I'm glad that everyone caught on and is on the same page. So it's funny because, Ollie, you know this, but I, wrote a book that came out, of course, right when quarantine hit. And I think that, again, when we're talking about purpose, I always thought, okay, my purpose is this company and working with athletes. And I realized that in my business, I'm helping them become the best versions of themselves. And my favorite part was the teaching. I mean, the lessons that I teach them, I'll say, you can't have happiness until you have 0% toxicity in your life. You have to sometimes do addition by subtraction, getting rid of the hangers on. That's a big thing in their lives. And tell them the only thing people remember is how you make them feel. And so ultimately, I ended up putting all of those things into this book because I realized that was the most impactful thing I could pass along were these life lessons that no one had taught them about in your personal and professional life, how to succeed. And so since the book has come out, my favorite thing to do is to be able to talk and share the lessons in there. And I've done a few speeches, but coronavirus hit pretty quickly. So if universities would have me, I would absolutely love to be there, because I think also what I put in there is my own story. I mean, I wanted to be the sideline reporter on Monday Night Football. I now created my own company. I mean, every job has been something that didn't exist, and I had to have that tunnel vision to follow my own path and chase happiness. A lot of people feel like they have to live life to make other people happy, or they're supposed to go to a 9-to-5 job. And not only with what I put in the book and my own story, but with the athletes I work with, I say you can create a path that hasn't existed before. So I think that combination of lessons, hopefully really helps people find their place in the world.
Yeah, so I was looking at the book, and when it was released, I saw it was the 31st of March this year. Is that right?
Yep, right around pandemic time.
Right when coronavirus hitting. So if anything, it's probably a good time to have done that, because if you got the word out well enough, people are at home, nothing to do. Why not try and get some self-help books, especially with the way that it affected people's mental health just during the time. I mean, it was a roller coaster for me, for example. So that sort of self-help book would have been perfectly timed.
Yeah, it was a combination of feelings. I think at first I was like, oh no, I took 9 months to write this book. I poured everything into it. It's supposed to be this big launch, and now it's all canceled. I had 2 book signings that were scheduled that we had to cancel. And then Cam and I were scheduled to do a fireside chat where he was going to interview me about the book, and we were having an audience come. So that got canceled. So that was all a bummer. So I think those were my sort of first feelings. And then I was like, this book means too much to me. How am I going to get it into people's hands? And so I turned into a delivery service, and anyone who ordered it in the Tampa area, I would put it in a little bag and leave it at their front door.
Oh,
People
how lovely.
elsewhere, I would drop it at the post office. And I think I realized things have a way of working out. So I sold a lot of books being a delivery service. And like you said, the whole world was stuck at home. So what better time to release a book when everyone is sitting at home with nothing to do. So they had plenty of time on their hands to read. And then for everyone who ordered one from me before it went on Amazon, I wrote a handwritten note. And a lot of those early purchasers were people who I've known my whole life or who had a tremendous impact on me. And so I was able to really convey to them my appreciation. It was kind of my thank you for everything they had done and let them know how much they had meant to me. And if I were doing in-person book signings, I would have never had the time to do that. So I look at things in retrospect, and I think it was a blessing in disguise, and it worked out the way it was supposed to. And next week I'm recording the audiobook, which I wouldn't have had time to do otherwise. So I think that Corona ended up being, probably maybe one of the best things that could have happened for my whole book launch.
This is the silver lining thing I'm talking about of Whitney Holtzman right here. I mean, if that doesn't sum it all up of putting a positive spin on everything, I don't know what does, man. That's yeah. It's finding the silver lining in the global pandemic is hard, but yeah, somehow you've been able to do it, man. What about?
I can't wait for the audiobook as well. I'm not very good at sitting down and reading things, so putting it in my ears is a much better way around it for me. So
okay, good. I'm recording.
Well, that's out. Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
if there's not a personal message in there, Whitney, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I heard ahead of time you don't really love reading books, and I was like, well, before I come on, I have to secure the audiobook so that Jack, because if you don't get to read it, what is the point of me writing it?
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you only read it for me, right? That's it. Yeah.
I remember when we first met, you were talking about going down the path of being a player's agent as well, and kind of undertaking that, because you have to have a license, right, don't you, to become a NFL player's agent. Is that still an ongoing thing? Has that happened? I don't think I've caught up with you about whether that's still on track or not.
Well, you're going to get a live update along with everyone else right now. So it's actually been an interesting situation. I applied in January and paid the fee, and the test is supposed to be every July, but it's in person in DC. You do a couple days symposium and then you get the test at the end of it. Because of coronavirus, all they told us was it's been canceled. They're hoping to reschedule in the fall, but they really don't know. So all of us who would like to become agents this year and take the test are in a total holding pattern, and we don't know when we'll be able to actively do that. I will say, again, when Corona hit, it's easy in quarantine. I mean, you're lucky if you don't catch coronavirus, and you have to consider that a winning day, but there can still be a lot of depressing days, or you focus on the lost opportunities. But I've really just tried to focus on what opportunities I can create. And one of them was that there's an NFL agent named Joshua Grady, very down to earth, wonderful guy, happened to play quarterback at Florida where I went. And he created, did you say boo?
Yeah, Tebow. I know you love Tebow, but come on.
All right, I'm going to finish my story because then I'll go on a rant. I should have put on my Tim Tebow socks for this podcast, which I have.
Tim Tebow jersey or should have had one.
I have everything. I literally have socks with his face on it. But anyway, wow. Joshua Grady put together this 8-week agent academy, and he did it over Zoom. So every week was a different topic of being an agent. He talked about the test. He talked about recruiting. He talked about the contracts, about marketing. And so at least during this time, we were able to get a class of us together who all want to be agents. We got to meet each other and then kind of have inside experience to learn from a current agent all the ins and outs that you could never learn from taking a test. So I got a little bit of additional experience, but it's hard because I would love to get started. I know there are some players that have expressed interest, and really the reason I wanted to become an agent is because one of my clients wanted to play one more year in the NFL. And I kept on social media watching his agent, and the agent lived about 4 hours away driving from where my client played. Not once did that guy get in the car and come and meet with the team. Almost every post on social media was him at a pool party or him at a swanky hotel or him traveling. And I would have been pitched a tent and sleeping outside the facility until they would let me in, until I could get a contract for my athlete. I mean, I would go to the ends of the earth, and I watched this guy who didn't even seem like he was doing the basics to try. And so I thought, you know what, this is the one thing that I can't do at the moment to help my clients. And I don't want I want my business to be able to do everything that my clients need help with and to be able to fully take care of them. And so that's what got me started on this agent journey in the first place. And so I would really love to execute on that vision, but to the NFL and the PA's credit, I think they're trying to figure out regular football first, which I kind of understand.
Yeah.
That's
still a big one as well, isn't it?
big figuring out going on.
Yeah.
I asked this, just talking about regular football then, to Dave earlier in the week, because I knew he wouldn't be on the podcast, so I got his answer in the bag already.
Okay.
If I gave you an over-under of 6.5 weeks of football, how much football do you think we're going to have this year?
Under
6.5.
Ooh.
Under 6.5. I think that I've been like from the beginning in March when this whole thing broke, I said very early on that I don't think we can have functioning pro sports until there's a vaccine. I think the NFL has done it, the NBA has done it pretty well, putting everyone in a bubble. But that is the only circumstance that worked. Same thing with the NHL. Those are the only places where you don't have positive cases. If you're letting the athletes roam around in their free time, there is no way, unless there are restrictions in place or you're in a bubble, there's no way you're going to tell a bunch of NFL players who have a lot of money to sit in their room for 6 months. And they're young. A lot of them are making a lot of money for the first time. There is no way they're going to have that discipline. So if they're going to be able to go to restaurants and go out and about and the virus is still spreading, I don't understand. And there's traveling involved and you're all in a big group. I don't understand how you can possibly have a season. I mean, I think MLB currently underway is still in trouble.
It's proven it all the way, isn't it, actually, with the Marlins and there's the Cardinals?
Cardinals, yeah. And those guys,
yeah.
They went to a casino and Marlins went to some clubs and restaurants. And I mean, that was only a few of them in a few places. And it just shows that can ruin everything. I mean, here in the US, we can't even open schools. All the kids are starting the school year on e-learning for the most part. So if we can't even have kids go to school, how the heck are we going to have this number of players together in one place, traveling around with seemingly no restrictions in place? And of course, I am not in the inner circle of the people making these decisions, but it seemed to me from an outsider's perspective, the NFL has had the longest time to figure this out, and they've done the least of any league. I think they were just hoping that it would go away. They really don't want to lose any money. So they're kind of just, resting back and saying, like, we'll do these few things, but basically we're the NFL and we, want to continue making money and we're untouchable. And I think that mindset gets you in trouble. What do you guys think, just out of curiosity, over under 6.5 games?
Jazz?
I would say over. I think over because of the money issue. I think that because they need to get these games played, because the broadcasters are paid X millions of dollars and they've got the sponsors and they've got the players and these 32 owners, I'm sure they could probably live without a year of income from the NFL, but I'm sure they probably don't want to live without the income of the NFL, even if it's reduced. So I reckon they'll find a way. I mean, like we had with soccer here, the only reason the Premier League got restarted here, granted they kind of did, they didn't really do bubbles for players actually at all, that I'm aware of, but they did that purely to avoid having to pay the broadcasters back millions of pounds. So I think money, unfortunately, will be the one that decides the amount.
Yeah, and for me, and Ollie, I want to hear your thoughts too, but it's the ticket takers and the concession workers.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the people I really feel for. The people throughout this whole pandemic who sort of need the money the most seem to be the ones that have gotten hit the hardest and that will hurt the most from the ramifications of this situation. And I really feel for them because at the very least, I don't know that we'll have fans. And I think those are the people that are impacted from those decisions.
Yeah.
Totally
It's kind of interesting. It's come up in the UK media this week about obviously Arsenal Football Club let 55 members of staff go because of financial troubles during COVID. Yet they've just offered their player a new extension with £120,000 a week being paid to him, and there's a lot of people asking the question. You can afford that, but you can't afford to pay 55, minimum wage salaries almost for some of those people.
Yeah.
The difference is that the players are the ones that make
the
money. They play the sport that we're all watching, and so their contribution is more valuable. Unfortunately, it just if you're going down on pure business semantics, it comes down to that the players are the most valuable asset in the club, and if you don't have them, you're not playing good football, you're not getting on TV then you're not
winning.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, I said that during coronavirus, everyone's character has been revealed, whether it's relationships, friendships, companies, and there's a lot of companies out there. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning owner is constantly throughout this whole thing paid all the employees. If you have enough money to do it, it's the right thing. This pandemic is no one's fault, and good, hardworking people really need the money, shouldn't have to suffer. So if you can do it, I think it says a lot about the character. And yeah, business decision, you can pay the players and not the 55 people who got let go, but is that really the right thing to do? And are you proud of that at the end of the day? And I think what's funny is I was talking to one of my clients right before we hopped on, and he was in the NFL, retired for a year, and he's making a comeback now. He decided he wants to play again. And I told him that I think this year is probably his best chance ever. I think it's going to be the year of the replacements, because we already had 69 players opt out before the season started. And then I think there's going to be lots of circumstances with no bubble protocol in place.
Yeah.
Players getting sick, their families getting COVID. And so I think there's going to be a lot more guys dropping out, and it's going to be opportunities for people you wouldn't expect who are going to get to have some playing time.
Now, we were excited last week for Brandon's chances, seeing as they all seem to be dropping out in New England. And it's like, all right, let's get him on the field. Let's get him in the starting lineup. Let's do this.
At some point, I was like, is he going to have teammates? Is he playing that?
I saw that meme of what was it, of Cam Newton face put on Will Smith in the last episode of The Fresh Prince, when he stood there and it's all empty and there's just a rug on the floor and it says Cam Newton getting to New England, because there's just nothing there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was so weird too, because I don't think anyone expected to have the Patriots be the team where the most number of players were dropping out. And then you have a client that just signed there and you're like, wait, is there a team? What's happening? Is this ever going to stop? And it was funny because one of the in-game and radio broadcast reporters for the Tampa Bay Lightning is married to a Patriots player, and they just had a baby. And I texted her, I'm like, we'll go to games together. It'll be great. I'm so excited to introduce you to Brandon. And then her husband was one of the players that opted out.
Oh, of course, that might just give away who that player was.
Yeah, Danny Vitale. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and I get it. They have a new baby. What are you going to do? And luckily they don't need the income, and it all makes sense. But I'm like, Brandon is going to be sitting by himself at lunch. Like, he's not going to have any friends.
There's the corporate mom in you, isn't it? That's why that's coming out there. Scared that your client's going to be on his own at lunchtime.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because someone said to me, are any of your clients the ones opting out? And I had to think about it for a minute, because the answer is no. And it's because they've been the underdogs their whole careers. And this opportunity is a dream that was sort of a miracle for them to accomplish and to be at this point, especially Brandon, year 8, undrafted out of Penn. And he is making more sacrifices than ever in terms of buckling down and saying, I'm not going out, I'm not doing any appearances, I'm not leaving the hotel, I'm sacrificing time that I'd get to be with my family to be able to continue this dream that he wasn't even sure was possible, but he knows it isn't going to last forever. And you almost have to be more disciplined to be able to stick this out than some of the guys who are just opting out. And I totally respect everyone's decisions, but it's not that the guys staying in, like my clients, are not conscious of their family's health or their own health. They just know this is a shooting star of an opportunity, and they've had to make so many personal sacrifices and almost bear down even harder than they ever were before, and really showcase their grit to be able to stick it out.
Yeah, and I think that's where the wink of the "show me the money" comes in from Dave. I mean, it could be great for your business as well, though. Like, not to sound like an evil landowner, but this is a good opportunity, I guess, for you as well, because if your clients are now getting better opportunities in the NFL, then, they're going to be talking even more about this kind of incredible hands-on management that they have from someone like yourself, which seems more unique than a lot of other players, the kind of representation that they get. I mean, again, you see it on Radio Row. You come down and you engage with the people that your clients are talking to, whereas there are a lot of people that are just showing athletes around and kind of just throwing them to the wolves. They'll stand like 10 yards away and say nothing and then drag them out of the interview at like, time's up, let's move on and on to the next one. And it's like, yeah. I mean, it's because it's a business for them. You know, for a lot of people, it's just right, this is my job. You sit down, you do your talking bit. And then when it's time for you to move on, I'll move you on. And it's like the complete opposite of it. And it's kind of a weird realization when you see how brutal it is in that lack of chemistry, lack of connection, I think, between the people and their representation at times. And I think it's a really great initiative that you've kind of taken up in your management style, to be honest. I think it's really affordable.
I didn't even realize that was going on because I sort of only know how to be me, and I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. And it just doesn't feel right doing it the way you describe. I mean, you have to live with yourself at the end of the day. And considering this is what I do for players, and especially on the biggest stage, how could I not be there to support them and create opportunities and guide them along? I mean, I can't imagine not doing it. And I don't know how people sort of are okay with just sort of throwing them to the wind and not really caring or having that personal connection. I mean, that's obviously their own choice. It's just I had to decide pretty early on what I wanted for my own life and how I wanted to live, and nothing less than how I go about things feels right to me.
Tidy, very tidy indeed.
Very good. Yeah.
Just quickly as well, any trips to the UK? Sorry, obviously not in the near future, but have you been over before?
So we went on a family vacation. I think I was in 8th grade and came to visit London and did sort of all the touristy stuff. But I've been meaning for the longest time, I have to come over and visit you and see your ropes, and you have to show me the sports world over there and get, you know, a real natives tour of the country.
Yeah, I mean, not right now because it's really hot and we don't do AC, and we've made it sound like we're in some kind of destitute third world country that are depicted of it at the moment.
Exactly. I mean, the way you've described things currently, it's not exactly the tourist bureau of please come visit us. You know, I mean, may want to work on the PR of that. I mean, I think if anything, maybe you want to come to Florida for the next few. I did say Tom Brady Super Bowl. I'm here. We have good weather. The hurricane didn't hit. So, I mean, we have swimming pools that don't have leaves. So,
That helps.
It helps. I don't know what more you could want, but I would like to make a visit over there. I think currently you do not allow my people to come and visit with the restrictions that are in place.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was
you're allowed to come, but we can't go to you. This is a very one-sided relationship that we've got here at the moment.
I thought we were the ones in timeout. Like, I thought that you wouldn't let us in because of the number of cases we have here, which obviously I have to apologize on behalf of the country, and I'm so sorry for our management. I promise it wasn't me, and I wish they would make an exception because now everyone has the time to come and travel. You just can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
If only that Lysol thing had worked, eh?
Oh, just, yeah. How are the cases over there? Are things like, can you go outside? Do you have to wear a mask? What is life like for you guys?
Masks, definitely masks. They've said that if you have health reasons, you don't have to wear them, but then there's no way of enforcing if someone has a health reason or not. So in that sense, you can just walk around without them. The trouble is, there's always going to be some Karen somewhere that's like, you should be wearing a mask, but you can happily tell them you have health reasons not to, and you can have a massive argument. It's not really worth it. They're talking about schools. Go on.
Yeah. I love that you have Karens over there also.
Oh, yeah. That's a worldwide phenomenon, the old Karen.
I think they have El Carens in Argentina, actually. So.
I didn't realize until this moment that Karen was a worldwide thing, but I am so happy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so you have to wear a mask when you go shopping. Like, you're not allowed in the supermarket without one unless, I guess, you have a piece of paper that says...
No, you don't have to have a piece of paper.
Oh, okay.
That you just show up and just go in. No one's going to ask you about it, but you might get other shoppers that will quiz you.
If you're in an outdoor area, or once you're seated in a restaurant with people, then and it's properly socially distanced, obviously, you can take the mask off while you eat. But if you get up to go to the bathroom, I think you have to put the mask on and stuff like that. It just seems like a lot of hassle of taking the mask on and off. Yeah. Cases, are they going down?
They're a little bit going the wrong way.
Oh, okay.
Slowly. Yeah. So I was saying that to this with Shane Vereen a couple of weeks ago, that America unlocked. Well, Florida didn't really fully lock down at all, did it? In some of the counties, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was minor.
Yeah. So if you look at when everything unlocked more in Florida and California, not California, but maybe Texas, we were about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 weeks behind. We're that kind of far behind them. So now we're starting to see the cases just start to go up a little bit. So we might be on the cusp of it doing what's happening in the States. But we're going to have to wait and see. But they're talking about the schools in terms of getting kids back. They might close all the pubs and restaurants to put the kids back instead, which is a much better idea. But of course, they want the money for the economy. So it's just a balance.
We did the same thing here in Florida. We had phase 1 where they opened up kind of the most basic places and we were doing okay. But then they opened up the gyms and the nail salons and the restaurants. And that's when cases started spreading like wildfire. And it really is here, every man and woman for themselves, because now everything is open. You can fly, you can go to restaurants, sit at a table. It's just you deciding how you want to be smart for yourself. And they do, a lot of places want masks, but also they want patrons, and they want to be able to pay their bills. And so who knows how toughly people are enforcing it. And for me, it was interesting because right at the end of last season, it was really nice, kind of what we were talking about before, but Brandon Copeland and my other client, Steve McClendon, did a presentation to the whole Jets team on all of the work that I had done for them. And so it felt like such an apropos way to kind of end the year. And it was, the best sort of marketing I could ever ask for. And we had really built this momentum. I didn't think I'd be at a point when this season started where I wasn't even going to be able to go see my clients play in person.
Yeah, it's, it was the most impossible thing to try and predict. Nobody saw it coming.
Or continues to be able to predict it at all.
Yeah.
Right. So are you guys fully working from home?
I'm not working. Is my thing. I've been so desperate to get back to kind of doing commentary and play-by-play. And I think my last game I did was March the 11th.
Wow. That's when everything turned.
I have a shift booked in somewhere on September the 12th. But you know, the thing I was talking to you about potentially South America or maybe the US or whatever, I'm not doing either. Yeah, because I can't get into Miami, and they're moving a lot of the operation to Miami, so that's now gone. So I don't know what happens with that. So now it's starting the fight to find work in the UK again. So it's like hitting the reset button almost on the career, and it's like, okay,
wow,
yeah.
Do they provide? Do you guys in the UK have good unemployment? What are they doing for people in your situation?
So they did for the self-employed. Which thankfully I'm still just about eligible for. You got 80% of what would have been your
income up to £2,500, wasn't that right?
What would have been your monthly income, but it was capped out at 2,500. But someone like me that kind of, I have a lot of expenses that goes on my tax bill with things like traveling to the US for the Super Bowl and stuff like that. Like flights aren't cheap, unfortunately. So yeah, there was a portion of money to kind of get you by, and then you can reapply, I think, next week for another bit. But then after that, that's cut off. So it's just, once you've got that.
It's crazy. Well, I don't know if you've been following what's happening with the stimulus here in the US, but like for someone in Florida, I think without any federal aid, it's $133 a week. So, yeah. So, and for a while, they had the $600 of federal payment on top of it, for the self-employed and people who ran their own businesses, but that expired July 31st, and they've been trying to negotiate this whole week on a deal, and they're still miles apart. And so it was already hanging on by a thread with the federal aid, but now that that's gone and we don't know when it's coming back, people are literally, we're going to have this whole new wave of eviction, starvation. It's just horrible, what's about to happen. Just when you feel like you've hit the worst of it, something else comes along and there's a whole new sweeping wave of devastation. And it's like, when are we going to start to see the upswing again?
Well, it's like
happen here as well.
If you're unlocking to be able to get the economy going, there then needs to be more support for people who aren't going to be able to benefit from the economy unlocking and who are going to be struggling. Like, it just, you have to provide that. Otherwise you are just going to have the haves getting more money and the have-nots getting poorer and poorer, and then even bigger problems with things like unemployment and stuff, and homelessness.
And homelessness, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy. And I think that we probably all never thought sports would ever disappear. And I think when everything happened in March, thought maybe it'd be a couple weeks. No one saw us at this point. And I think there's a lot of people in our industry who work nights and weekends, and Ollie, you're traveling all over. Everyone makes a lot of sacrifices, but you do it because of the safety net of the sports world and the excitement of it. And there's so many colleagues across the world who have been affected. And I think you think of them and hope everyone is landing on their feet. I've never seen within our industry so many people lose jobs all at the same time.
it's a big culling of contract staff at the moment as well. So even if you're not a freelancer, if you're contracted, there was quite a few production companies kind of did a big kill off of contracts July time. So that's more people who are going then to the freelance market to fight for the few jobs that are going to be about. So it's all going to keep compiling on itself. And it's a really interesting time though for the media, because again, going back to things like social media and the interactions over that, and things like Zoom fans in the stands, and how you can work all of that. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it's going to change the way that we consume sport even more. I think it's going to push forward the downfall of traditional television networks, I think, a lot quicker, particularly in the US, and the way we consume things like highlights. And I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to have a even bigger impact on what was already a rapidly changing position of sports broadcasting and how we consume it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I guess, from your own situation and someone who has to find contracts and there has to be sports for you to be able to work, what have you learned, or what advice do you have, or how have you pivoted? Because I think probably people in your situation could really benefit from hearing your story.
Oh, this is something I've been trying to work out. I was meant to chat with Cam yesterday, but I had this meeting, so we've delayed it for next week to talk about a little bit about this, of how, because he's obviously having to kind of pivot as well from his broadcasting roles that he was doing with the XFL in Tampa and such. In terms of pivoting right now, I think your own content creation is going to be even bigger. I'm actually, I don't say, this sounds really weird, but I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of the stand-up comedy stuff that I've seen in the last few years, and how big comedians in the US have kind of taken control of the way that they produce and create their own content. And I think there is a way for sports media to go down that line to an extent, because people seem to want quick, easy social media hits, a little bit less of the suited and booted, Al Michaels straight down the middle. This is broadcasting. Hello and welcome. I think a lot of people I'm not a big fan of it personally, but a lot of people do like the kind of informal, long form chat where there aren't as many constraints on what you can and can't say. And, curse words, obviously you can't have on a national network, but you can on a podcast. Say whatever you want, where I know you've been holding it back, but you can cuss all you want.
Me and my filter.
So I think there is a way to use that to your own benefit as a broadcaster and a sports fan and somebody that works in the industry. It's just finding the way to then create that connection with the audience, because it's a very difficult and quite a compressed market, even that, to get into, because a lot of people have tried, and it can come off either as gimmicky and it can come off as quite cheap as well. You like lowbrow humor, if you will, and you want to have the smarts to it and the professionalism of the debate, but with the casualness of chatting kind of down the pub.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that it's the best time to own your own brand. I mean, people are sitting at home with extra time. They're on social media more than ever. And I was talking to one of my clients earlier who said that he, in like a day, gained 50,000 followers on TikTok because he posted 11 of his NFL catches, and there hadn't been anything like that before. And now with the advent of Instagram Reels, there's probably an opportunity to post sports reels and different ways for broadcasters to take advantage of social media the same way an athlete would, which is kind of how we started this conversation in the first place. Like, now is the time to go all in on your digital presence and your social presence, because it's what we have control of. All eyes are on it, and that's all we have for our world now. And so all of the focus is on everything digital.
We had a really weird Saturday morning soccer show called Soccer AM back in the day.
Oh,
that
yeah.
used to be very popular, and they did really odd things. Like, they had a guy with a northern accent who they called Sheephead because he had kind of curly hair like sheep's wool. And he used to do a very brief segment on it called Topless Weather, where he was just a regular man, you know, bit of a beer belly, but would never say like he was a big guy or anything like that, but certainly not like a chiseled athlete. And he'd just take his t-shirt off, stand in a pair of jeans in the car park of the studios with a little weather board next to him, and he'd go through what various weather was looking like. And it was always the same pattern. And for some reason, it was just hilarious. Like, it just ticked the right bit of the funny bone. And
the light drizzle.
Yeah, light drizzle. It was always light drizzle, and topless weather. Sheephead's Topless Weather was always sponsored by gravy, because northern boys love gravy. And like, it was just weird. But I think something like that, especially through things like TikTok, which again I can't stand, but I can see why it's connecting to the younger audience and stuff. There's something there. If you can just find it.
Us all that you're going to do a show naked? Was that what you were teeing up?
I was asking.
Topless Ollie.
I was hinting at Jazz to start doing topless podcasts. Basically, and we might need to get Dave to do it if he's going to come back on this thing, I think. But
how did Dave go on vacation in the middle of coronavirus?
Just, he lives in Wales. He went to his family's got a house by the seaside.
A flat up on a really nice seaside town. So he's gone up there.
So it's like if you had a weekend away at Indian Rocks Beach, that sort of thing.
Got it. Thank you for translating. So he has his own cliff over there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That makes total sense. Well, he heard I was coming on, and he said we're going to the vacation house.
He was actually devastated to miss chatting with you, because he's very much interested in the kind of world outside of football as well. He's got really into the whole like roster building style of stuff, and seeing how teams interact with each other and how they kind of maintain being under the salary cap. And so I think he really wanted to kind of start picking your brains as somebody who's ingrained in that business world outside of the field, to kind of talk about it.
I mean, we can always do it again. Is he the one who asked Brandon to pay for his vacation?
Yeah, he is also the one that asked Brandon to pay for his vacation.
So is Brandon funding this holiday that he's currently at?
He might be. He might have kept that on the sly.
I mean, I think we need to come full circle and figure out if Brandon wrote the check, and that's the reason that Dave is now on holiday.
Well, if you remember, Brandon said that he wouldn't say that it was him who was going to give the money to people, though, to support those sorts of ventures. True. So if Dave has got a secret windfall from Brandon, Dave wouldn't even know about it. So we need to question Brandon once again, really.
I'm just saying it's very coincidental, because he asked on the episode and now he's on vacation and he's not here. If you carry the one and add this all up, it just seems a little suspicious.
Yeah. Dave's done that, and he asked Shane Vereen about being a Falcons fan, which Shane immediately pointed to the Super Bowl trophy and went,
that's funny.
And put him down. So you can't really trust him, and I'm almost quite glad that he's not on this call, Dave, at the moment.
Yeah, maybe Dave is in timeout right now.
Maybe it's that.
I know you're a very busy woman, and when we spoke, you said you can only do an hour, and we've done way more than an hour. So I do apologize for keeping you on here if you've got stuff to do. Jazz, if you got anything else to fire at Whit to bombard?
Really. I think we've covered kind of everything that I wanted to talk about. Would love to have you on again, because there's just so much more to talk about. And obviously, when you've done the audiobook for me, I'll listen to that, and I'll have a ton of questions about that, of course.
Yeah. How would you like me to dedicate it? Like, just kick it off, like, and talk about the title and say, and this is for Jazz and the reason I wrote this book, or how would you like your inscription to go?
I'd like it a little bit like what Pat Boland did for John Elway. So this is for John, but this is for Jazz, and just try and get a lot of emotion behind the Jazz. So I really feel it.
Tears, right?
If you get tears in there, I'd be all for it.
Okay. And I think probably next time we do this, maybe I should report live from Tom Brady's
backyard. Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did send him a book. I mailed him one. I haven't heard back, but maybe it's just taking him a long time to read it.
Well,
Maybe.
don't trust him to get the audiobook because he's still operating on that iPhone 6, which is just so old and hacky. So
Really?
There's something so charming about him. Like, he is the richest player ever, basically, and can buy any phone, and he like doesn't care about material things. Like, that's
you're better than this, Whit. Don't get sucked into that. You know, as somebody that works in marketing and strategy, that was all a ploy. He knew he was pulling his old iPhone 6 out of a drawer to plug into his car that day, so it came up as Tom Brady iPhone 6 so that people would continue to talk about Tom Brady.
And really what he's got is the Elon Musk's Neuralink in his brain already. That's what he's got.
Yeah. He's my QB now, so just watch how you talk about him. And you have to remember what I went through the past 4 years. So now I'm in therapy with Tom Brady and sort of healing. And I mean, between hating on him and my Tim Tebow socks, I mean, I really thought we were on the same page, but you're hurting all my people.
It's all gone downhill, hasn't it? It's all gone downhill.
I don't know how we didn't do an entire episode on Tim Tebow.
We can next time.
Yeah, it's a very short episode about him being.
There's some very interesting stories from that Florida team, though, isn't there?
Lots of interesting stories and a few now Netflix documentaries here and there. But when I worked for ESPN, we did like a round table on our take on Tim Tebow, and mine was like, I went to war for him. Like, my whole column was like, I went all, like, no one has defended that guy more emotionally than I did in that column. It just was, I mean, my love for him was very clear.
Have you ever met Tim?
A few times. We have some pictures together. What?
Do you keep your cool? Are you like Whitney Holtzman?
No!
All right, okay.
He and Oprah for me are like the two where I like can't keep it together. And it was funny because I've been to some of the Florida games where he's broadcasting and take a picture at the end. And, you know, I was trying to say something nice. I read his book, and I think he recognizes me because I'm everywhere he is at this point. So
you're stalking him, basically.
Yeah. I mean, when he was playing baseball, it was in Florida, you know, for the minor league. So I was in the front row of the Yankees game. I think he's like, why do I keep seeing this girl everywhere? And like, why is she stalking me? But then the funniest was when I worked at a marketing agency here, VaynerMedia in New York. Small marketing, started by Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary B, if you know who that is. But it was it was my first venture out of the sports world. And Tim Tebow walked in for a meeting with Gary, and the conference room was all glass. So all my coworkers still joke about how I like sat right by that conference room, and they were like, you couldn't get words out, you could not breathe. And then I went down the elevator and got a picture with him before he left. So now he's seen me in the most random places. Yeah. He's probably so confused.
It's going to
be
like
working for Gary V.
What?
What was it like working for Gary V?
So I only have the best things to say about my time there. First of all, the backstory, I was sitting at LaGuardia, and I ordered a pizza to the gate at LaGuardia because I thought it was so cool that they would deliver a pizza to you at an airport gate. And I just had time to kill while I was eating it and started reading the iPads they have. And VaynerMedia was the first story. And I just instantly knew where I belonged. So I got on the plane, bought Wi-Fi, figured out Gary's email address, and said something like, I just read about you at gate D4 and I need to come work for you. So had it not been for pizza, I would have never ended up at VaynerMedia.
Oh, there you go. Pizza making the world go round.
Exactly. Pizza is the reason for everything. But I was at MLB at the time, and I knew I was looking for a great culture. But everyone said to me, you're leaving MLB to go work for this guy. We can't even spell his last name. I mean, no one had heard of him at the time. But I just knew it was the right place for me. I was employee 167 there. And my third day, talk about fate, Steve Ross, who owns the Dolphins, invested in Vayner. And luckily, Gary, even at that point, felt like he knew me well enough. He said, you remind me a lot of me. So I was staffed on some of the bigger Fortune 100 accounts, and he pulled me off and created a position for me where once Steve and Gary invested in or incubated a startup, they would hand it over to me to do the marketing. So he created a whole new position. And so he was my direct boss for 2 years. So once again, I got this kind of uniform experience where he was so loving and wonderful. And out of all the employees, he created my dream role for me.
Wow.
That is amazing. Because, of course, Gary Vaynerchuk is a worldwide sensation these days. So,
That's so funny to hear you say that because no one heard of him when I worked
yeah, I
there.
can imagine. He's everywhere now. Every time I turn Facebook on or Instagram or Twitter on, I see something about Gary V or someone mentioning Gary V.
Yeah, no, we were just like in a small office in New York and he was my boss and it was like going to work every day at a regular job. So it's amazing to me what's happened to him now because not a soul had heard of him when I went to work there.
Wow.
How long ago was that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, so I started there in February of 2014 and worked till the end of 2015.
Wow.
So it was kind of during his rise, but it was before. I mean, my family hadn't heard of, and it was funny to watch people. They're like, "Isn't that the guy you worked for?" And people started freaking out. So it was really fun to kind of be in the early stages of that whole experience, and then watch him blow up and have the whole rest of your world find out about him. But I feel grateful because if I went back today, now he's a huge celebrity. I wouldn't have the same opportunity or interaction, but I got to have a different relationship with him. He always says to me, like, you have totally different context than anyone else would because, you know, I got to know him on a personal basis as my direct boss. And when I was there, I was introducing him to people, meet this person for baseball. And so we, you know, I feel grateful that hopefully I was able to provide him a little value. Whereas again, like an athlete, everyone's hitting him up for things. But yeah, we text sometimes. He came down to Florida, he met my family. So to me, he's like a family member, like someone I worked with. Like this whole persona is just so bizarre to me because it's like just a guy I knew.
That's crazy.
Wow.
2014, no one knew who he was, and now look at him.
Exactly. And he's so much more loving than anyone could imagine from his outside persona. I mean, someone's grandmother had passed away and he bought train or plane tickets for them to go to the funeral. He knew all of our families. He knew, you know, if you were sick last week, how are you feeling? I mean, every Friday I wrote in like a report of what I did that week at work, how I was feeling, how I felt about, and he read every single one of them every week. I mean, it was just amazing chapter and personal attention that I feel so lucky to have, and he totally changed my life. And then he recommended me for my 2 jobs after Vayner. So I left the company and then he recommended me for the Rise job. And then Brandon Marshall needed a chief marketing officer. So he recommended me for that job also. So this whole representing athletes thing started because of him.
Wow.
Brandon Marshall, the receiver or the linebacker?
The receiver.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
not that Brandon Marshall, the linebacker, is a bad thing, by the way. I feel like our reaction there was tempered, but
no, but like Brandon Marshall was one of my favorite players to watch. Like,
yeah, it was amazing.
Such an awesome receiver, exciting as hell.
Well, I'm glad I said the right Brandon Marshall based on your reaction.
Well, in fairness, you said the other one, I'd be like, oh, that's good too.
Yeah. No, but it was cool because the Brandon Marshall I worked for had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and everyone said to him, don't tell anyone about this, you'll never get another contract. And instead he held a press conference and he started his nonprofit Project 375 because lime green is the color for mental health awareness, and on the Pantone color chart, lime green is number 375. So when I worked for him, we ran around the country and did suicide prevention trainings and talked all about mental health and trained adults who worked with kids on how to identify mental health issues and get kids help. So, I mean, talk about using your platform wisely. And from what my friends who worked at the NFL told me at the time, I was really the first chief marketing officer for one individual player that they had ever heard of.
Wow. Gee. Yeah, that is
be the first Jew. That's exactly it, isn't it? That couldn't have been a better title for your book.
Right. Well, that's exactly the point. And that's why I struggle when someone will say, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? And I kind of just say, well, I couldn't have imagined any of the jobs I have now. And I think it's kind of more like a spouse. Like, you can't predict it. You just have to know yourself well enough to know it's the right fit when you see it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's such a cool calling card to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
That must be one is that on the business card, just sliding it across like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I went to speak at a high school a few years ago and a kid said to me, have you always been entrepreneurial? I'm like, they only call it that when it works. Like, when you're saying I'm going to do these things and everyone else is going left and you're going right, like, they call you a fuck up. So it's not until that you succeed that they're like, wow, that is the coolest thing ever. So in all these jobs, I was the one taking a leap of faith and kind of seeing the forest through the trees before anyone else was. So it worked out, but at the time you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Well, it's the right time to be doing stuff like that again, isn't it? With everything that's going on, and as you say, pivoting and seeing what works and what doesn't. And you seem like you've got the winning streak in you, Whit. So
yeah, it's definitely on a roll here for sure.
Well, this is what I like to say. When I went to Florida, between the time I got accepted and the time I graduated, the Gators won 2 football and 2 basketball championships. So I got there, they had this epic historical run. I left and things went downhill. Like, I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but you cannot ignore the facts.
One thing we didn't get, I was going to try and get back into it, but we never got a chance to, was how many games do you think we're going to have over under?
Well, let's do that now because I'm still recording and everything, so we can do this as like a little outro or something if you want.
Sure. What would you think? Over under of 6.5, wasn't it?
Yeah, I said to Dave earlier in the week, I said we'll have less than 6.5.
You think that? What did Dave think?
He went for under as well.
Wow, so I'm the only one going over.
Positive panda at the moment.
I would take that bet every day of the week.
Yeah. I think we don't have major sports in the US at Christmas. I don't think we have any major sports taking place. I don't think we have the NBA after they finish off this season. I don't think the NFL is going at Christmas. I don't think ice hockey will be going because it's the traveling aspect that's killing it.
That's the trouble, yeah. But I think that they haven't. Sorry, I'm just completely interrupting you again there, Ollie. I think it's one of the ones. Here you go. That's the reaction you've been having. I think it goes back to my idea that I had, where if you just take it so every team in one state bubbles together, then you have them being taken to a different state to play their games in one stadium. So say, for example, you have, let's go with the AFC North, and they're going to play the AFC East. You take the ones from Ohio, take the ones from Pennsylvania, and you may try and bring don't think you should put the Steelers and the Ravens in the same place. That's probably a bad idea, but you should probably do something like that to try and bubble them. And then they have to then just change the schedule completely so that those teams go and play the 2 teams they're going to play in that state, or that team's bubble, play the 2 games there, or 4 games, whatever it's going to be, and then carry on from there. There's no way they're going to be able to carry on the season as they have done, like they have to Major League Baseball, in terms of trying to let it just be, oh yeah, we'll just go and play, we'll travel around, because there's too many variables, especially as we've said before, with the number of people in NFL staff and team and players, that letting them just walk around and do whatever they want is going to be tricky. I mean, even just get the NBA players to stay in the hotel for 40 days has been tricky with that guy who got the takeaway and had to be quarantined for 14 days because he just went and picked up a bag.
Genius.
Yeah. Not as bad as the Rudy Gobert thing, but still not ideal. So I can get why you'd have that negative or maybe realistic view of it. But I really hope we do, because 1, I want to have something to talk about. 2, I'd like some games to bet on to try and win some money. The
only reason that it takes place is forcing it through. And I genuinely think the NFL will do everything that they can to force it through.
Just like the Premier League did.
Yeah, but I think for the scale, and we said it last week, I think it was, when we were asked about kind of how the Premier League coped with it. I think it was last week. And with Camp, and we kind of said, yeah, they did a really good job, but we're not dealing on the same scale as the USA. I mean, that's the thing that the USA always has that is problematic, is that it's 50 countries pretending to be a country. Like, it just doesn't. Yeah. It causes problems in litigation, in
all kinds of things, really,
like COVID. I mean, it must be an absolute nightmare. I mean, yeah. So I just don't see. I don't see it happening. And I think the TV networks and the NFL come to some sort of agreement, because the TV networks are going to have to realize that they obviously need football for viewing figures. But at the same time, if the football is so bad, that's the other thing. You look at something like the XFL and the football quality, a lot of people were slamming. And Yeah, there were other problems with the XFL, but a lot
Yeah.
of people said, look, this just isn't a good game of football to watch.
But that's
So,
because they're used to watching the NFL, and also they're used to watching college football. If you watch, say, LSU, Alabama, those players then become the stars of the NFL. So you're used to a certain quality of product.
but we're not going to get that quality of product if we have players dropping out. Lots of things like obviously players getting COVID and various replacements and people that have maybe been out of the league a year or so coming back in to kind of fill vacant gaps and the inability to have proper training sessions and proper kind of sit down meetings and positional meetings and things like that. So if the quality drops off in terms of the level of the product going out, it's no use to the TV companies anyway. And people will do what we were doing and just go back and watch old NFL games and enjoy that, which unfortunately you can't bet on. It's really difficult to do that.
Well, you can, but it's called losing your money because because if someone knows the outcome, they're just fleecing you. I totally agree with that. I think one thing we didn't mention in the preseason actually is actually that we did actually mention that about in terms of being prepared for things and being able to see where the teams really are. Because if you haven't got even one preseason game, you haven't got an idea if all this disruption to training camps and mini camps, etc., are going to lead it to being, like you said, a very bad product on the field. And if you have that, then really realistically speaking, you're probably not going to want to watch a bad product. Although, having said that, even if it's on Sunday and it's red zone, I'll still probably put it on.
I think that might come down to the way that the NFL kind of survives through this, is that people will at the end of the day be so starved of quality football that they will just watch anything.
And by then, the Major League Baseball season will have finished. The NBA playoffs will have finished. I'm not sure when the next NBA season is going to start, for example. NHL, I'm not sure that. I have no knowledge of NHL, so I can't really talk about that.
They're just doing this like pre-tournament before the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Right,
so
okay.
Basically, they've got a kind of a round-robin tournament to get into the playoffs.
Stanley Cup playoffs.
Teams that have a chance to get in, and then you start the playoffs. And
so that might be finished within the next kind of month or two. So you're going to have, say, October, November, December, January, these months which are pure NFL Sunday months.
Oh, it's a huge opportunity for any sport. I mean, this is what we were talking about with the Premier League when, and eventually what the Bundesliga did was they were the first to get going again.
Back, yeah.
And every sports kind of network in the UK that had Bundesliga content available to them, i.e. BT Sport and Talk Sport, like pushed it real hard. There were these kind of social media campaigns of which Bundesliga team should you support, because it was the only football available and loads of people watched it because it was all that was there. So if the NFL can get it right, it's a really big opportunity for them and for their TV networks that cover it. But at the same time, if they can't get it done safely or with a decent enough product that people are going to be interested in, plus if you've got a massive economic recession coming along, you're not too fussed about what sports are on when actually you're worried about where your next paycheck's coming from.
Yeah, or next bit of food, for example. Yeah, I didn't realize. Whit was saying about how little support they get. I didn't realize it was that bad.
Nuts. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways though, it's similar to if, say, for example, if someone was self-employed, say for yourself, for example, but you'd only been self-employed for 3 months, and you'd been on the same sort of thing that the US stimulus thing's been on, because it's just benefits, isn't it, really? It's just been lucky that...
Happened again, Jazz. Covered. White T-shirt.
Oh, Ollie. You don't wear the white T-shirt with the green drink.
It was better. I was going to wear a vest
top. Learn this thing, man.
I was real close to wearing a Lakers vest top for this, and I was like, no, that will look really bad if I'm like basically half dressed while we're talking to Whit and looking like a slob. And I was like, okay, just crack on a T-shirt quickly about 5 minutes before we started. It didn't happen while she was here, so that's okay. She still thinks I'm an upstanding member of society almost.
Yeah. And also, if you got the green stuff on the yellow, that would probably be worse to try and get out.
I'd be more annoyed as well because the Lakers jersey is really nice. This is an old cheap T-shirt. So.
Which Lakers jersey are you going to wear?
The purple Shaq one.
Oh, okay. The most recent one you wore?
Yeah, it's really comfy. I love that top.
Does it feel... It's obviously it's from...
Yeah, it's not...
Yeah, it's not official.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it is legit, though?
Yeah, the quality, actually, the nylon quality, the ones that I've ordered, they can certainly range in kind of how they feel. But this one actually does feel the most kind of realistic.
Legit.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
I can really tell the difference between the Space Jam one that I've got and then the Derrick Rose and Magic Johnson one that I've got, because they were bought from, I think, the NFL store.
Nice.
Like the 70 quid version of instead rather than a stupid, crazy money one. But the Space Jam one was, I think, £30.
30.
But I think it's because maybe it was 20 or 15.
I can hook
Doesn't
you up
matter.
a 15 quid one here. Don't from where I'm getting mine.
It
Don't
might
worry.
have been 15. Because the coupe, yeah, it must have been that because I think it was £40 altogether with shipping and the Cooper jersey that I've given to John already.
Nice. Just quickly, it might not make the edit with the chat we had with Whit. I'm not sure when I kind of cut it all down this evening or tomorrow morning. But next week we have Marlon Favourite. He's booked in. Sent the email with that around. We also have either next week or the week after, if we want, Neil Dutton, who's like a fantasy football expert that's done a few bits for TalkSport too. Okay. He's an English guy. He's an Eagles fan and he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. So it's
basically Ollie.
Yeah, he's like me.
It's like your spirit animal.
I put all of my fantasy football knowledge into this Twitter account called Neil Dutton and then put it all out there. And then I don't take any of it and lose the league that we're in every single time.
I was going to say, it's as if Ollie's got a secret twin but has all the fantasy football ability.
Yeah, I'm the evil one and he's
that's going to be such a boring episode with him and Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Dave's going to get so deep on that, isn't he?
To be honest, there could be arguments all over the place. I was thinking with yourself as well. You know, he might be like, Hooper's a good...
He likes Kirk Cousins? Mm.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cousins is a great quarterback to have as a fantasy football owner, and you'll be like, he's terrible, I hate him, and there we go around the houses. But Neil will join us either next week or the week after. I was kind of thinking next week might be a fun one to do it. And we can introduce him to the F. Eli Manning League as well, I think. We should.
Adam is a player?
Well, as in the ramifications of losing fantasy at Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, as well as that, I was saying to you the other day about doing another league with Woodcock being interested.
Yeah, we could maybe
always see if he wanted to play the league too, see if he could show us all a thing or two.
No, I say I want more of a chance to win, but I don't think that's going to happen whether Neil's in it or not. So
no.
It makes a difference.
Yeah. So maybe we should see if he wants to play.
Yeah.
But the trouble again, that's the other thing with no preseason. How are we going to know who to pick in fantasy? Because for all we know, we might think, Dalvin Cook's going to be really good this year. But actually, Mattison's the one getting all the snaps.
Yeah, and also, at least you know the 69 players that aren't going to be playing. So no point picking up Damian Williams, for instance, in Kansas City.
Carlos Edwards-Helaire. I can't remember his name now. Edwards-Helaire?
Yeah.
That as soon as I saw that, I thought I'm going to put him on my little list. But then, of course, now you've mentioned it. Now I know you're thinking about it too.
Yeah, that draft stock has gone up even more, especially in a PPR league. He's like
with Shady McCoy going into our
Christian McCaffrey, basically. Yeah. So, he's going to get a lot of catches out of the backfield, and he's going to take the behind the back pass from Mahomes that he's been practicing. Did we mention on the podcast that about the humiliation of being a DN that bites on a pump fake of a behind the back pass?
No.
Because that could happen this year. Because Mahomes has shown that behind-the-back pass all over social media about 2-3 weeks ago. And then he said, I'm definitely going to pull it off in a game, which means that anybody coming around the edge or getting through, if they see him do that, is going to naturally assume that it might be going
and they
out
can't
to
hit
the
him
back at that point.
Yeah.
They can't hit him. And if you're the end coming off the edge, you might think you've got a chance to get a hand out and bat it away. So if he pumps that and the end commits to the behind-the-back pass, and he doesn't, and then he moves away and ends up, throwing a no-look pass downfield for a touchdown to Tyreek Hill, which isn't out of the question with Patrick Mahomes, unfortunately. Yeah, that's that DN can never play for another snap in that game because the offensive lineman on the other side of the ball is just going to be, mate, you just bit on a pump fake behind the back pass. What sort of an NFL player are you?
That's unfair.
It's unfair.
That's unfair because it's like saying anyone play action. It's like saying, that Statue of Liberty play with the Patriots, whatever they do, you shouldn't bite on that. But of course you can because you can't see it. Yeah,
but a behind the back pass is different.
How?
Because that's something that has never been even.
Yeah, but he's shown that he can do it, so you know it's possible. So if you know it's possible, biting on something that's going to happen is not that difficult.
He's just putting that thing out. I think it's a fantastic ruse to humiliate somebody. But I also think it might get Mahomes killed. Because
yeah,
Because now, if that happens to one guy, nobody else is going to want
No
to
one's
be
stopping.
that guy again. So then you're just going for Mahomes.
And roughing the pass is only a 15-yard penalty.
And it's worth it if you
I
take
think.
Patrick Mahomes out of the game.
So there's lots to be thinking about.
Yeah, there's a lot to be thinking about. Jazz, where can people find you on Twitter and Instagram and stuff?
At Jazz Gillum for both Twitter and for Instagram. And of course, you should always follow the at UK_pick_6 podcast on Instagram as well.
Is it UK_pick_6_podcast, or is it UK_pick_6?
Well, no, that's a question.
No underscore between the 6 and the podcast. I can never
I
remember.
think that's the case. Yeah, it is underscores the whole way. UK_pick_6_podcast.
I'm O_J_Wilson. I didn't actually create that Instagram name, by the way, even though I love the underscore. That was all on Dave. So
Oh, was it? Why did you do one word?
I had no idea. Maybe it was already taken. O_J_Wilson on Twitter and on Instagram. It's David Bluck 1 on Twitter and David Bluck on Instagram. And of course, on Twitter, we have at UK Pick 6 Pod, all one word on Twitter, UK Pick 6 Pod. Thanks for listening. Big thanks to Whitney Holtzman as well, who was just stellar as always. And tune in next week with Super Bowl winner and 2 Super Bowl winners. That's pretty nice. Has any podcast got better in a percentage ways than our podcast during COVID? Because we weren't doing a lot, and then we've upped our game quite a lot.
Rapidly,
You've gone BANANAM bananas on the Instagram stuff.
Have to.
Taken control of that account off Dave, which I've... I mean...
Well, to be honest with you, I think you can really tell when I took control, because if you look from before, there was about 6 posts. Very interspersed with no real rhyme nor reason. And now, from my point of view, I think we're making some pretty good memes. So hopefully people just laugh at that. That's what I'm trying to do, provide some light humor. And
then abuse people that answer back to you in the comments section.
I mean, I've not abused anyone. That's unfair. I try and engage. I mean, all the people we've actually had commenting have been really good, and it's been fun to have actual intellectual conversations with people about these things. The Matt Breida, Tyreek Hill one was quite interesting.
The more followers we get, if we get any, there will be less and less intellectual conversation on it.
I don't know. I like to keep going. It's just good to talk football. I mean, that's the most important thing. I mean, the last one I just put up before we started, it's got a couple of comments I need to have a chat to about. So it'd be something to look forward to when I get off.
Yeah, well, I'll let you have a gander at that. Until next week with Marlon Favourite. And no podcast has got better as much as we've got better, by the way. That was the correct answer during lockdown.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I mean, you could probably make the case, actually, that the House of Rugby podcast has got exponentially worse because they lost Alex Payne, James Haskell, and Mike Tyndall because they created their own podcast instead.
Yeah. I don't listen to that anyway. So.
Oh, you should. It's funny.
I'm not a massive rugby fan. I've got this.
That's fine.
NFL sorts me out.
You can just cut this bit out anyway, so whatever.
No, we'll leave it in. Until next week. Thanks for listening.